Bill, thanks for doing this. You look good, man. I mean, it hasn't been that long since we spoke, but you look really good to me. So thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I feel much, much better. I'm walking a mile at a time now, and I was at a point where I couldn't walk 50 yards. So had the surgery. Everything's good. Just on the road to full recovery.
I think that I didn't share this with you, but I tore my quad 12 years ago, and nobody ever wants to go through anything to have to go through major surgery. But I always try to find silver linings in situations, and just hearing what you're sharing now, you're up to a mile at a time, and the comeback. It is a glorious thing. The comeback from all this.
Well, I kind of wish I was 40 years younger. The comeback would have been faster, and I would have worked harder. But at 65 years old, you only got so much push. So, but I thank you for I thank you for asking.
Well, and also I think what's really important right now, and you and I've talked about this before, but resiliency and to get in the best physical shape possible because
Right,
you have not been shy on where you think things are heading.
right. Yeah, I mean, you obviously don't want to be a liability. You want to be an asset. You want to be an asset to whatever group you are in. You don't want to be a liability, a hanger on, or whatever. So yeah, it's important to get yourself right, uh, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, every way you possibly can, because what's coming is going to be more difficult than anything we've seen in our lifetimes, for sure.
Do you think that you and I've spoken many a times at this point. Do you think the masses are waking up more to understand what's really happening and what's about to occur?
Yeah, little by little, the real normies are starting to figure out that there's something wrong. They may not know what it is. People who a year ago, 2, 3, 4 years ago knew something was wrong, but didn't know what it is. Those people have progressed, and yeah, more and more people, like I said, little by little, are they're waking up and figuring out what the problem is, and there's more and more people preparing for what they see coming. So yeah, it's definitely people are waking up somewhat.
What is at the top of your mind right now in terms of concerns?
Uh, while I think what DOGE is doing is really good. I mean, we're 30, 40 years past the point in time where they needed to shut a lot of things down or not get started with them. While I agree with it, uh, the unintended consequences are going to be that they're basically taking the funding away from the Ponzi scheme. I mean, just look at Washington D.C. Look at how many listings have been put on the market. I mean, it's in the thousands and thousands of listings just over the last 4 to 6 weeks since DOGE started, because that funding is going to stop, or it's already stopped, and that money is not going to make it onto the streets. So you've got a lot of people that were, for lack of a better term, sucking off the government teat. That teat has been shut off, and there's no more money flow. And I think that's going to happen systemically, uh, not just U.S. but worldwide, because we were sending money all over the world, and that money stops. And I've talked about this before. When you stop new money going into a Ponzi scheme, what happens? The Ponzi scheme collapses, and that's where we are right now. They are shutting the money off to the giant Ponzi, even though it's a good thing. Uh, when this totally comes to fruition and you see markets melt down, life as we knew it will never ever be the same again in our lifetimes. It almost doesn't matter how young you are. I mean, a 20-year old, yeah, 30, 40 years out from now, things will will be different, probably better. But I mean, if you're 40 years old or older, I think during your lifetime, we're not, life's not going to come back to anything even resembling how we've lived over the last 50, 60, even 80 years. Go back to the end of World War II.
I think it's going to be, in my opinion, I think it's going to be hardest for people my age. I mean, I'll be 47 in May, and I always get the terms screwed up. The millennial. I think I'm a millennial. Yeah, millennial generation. Uh, even 10 years younger than me, most difficult because we knew a different world. We knew a world with all this technology and social media and
Right,
playing outside and what have
right.
you. And, like my mother's in her 70s and she says, she's referenced, I wish I was older. And I'm glad that I'm
I
out.
say the same thing.
Oh, you do this? You say the same thing?
I say exactly the same thing. I wish I was older. Um, if I was 75, 80 years old, I'd just be probably sitting back and saying, well, it doesn't matter. I've already had my life. Uh, Although I'm sure at some point, even at that age, I'd stand up and fight. But I really, if I was 10 years, 15 years older, uh, I would only get to see basically the end. People under say 60, 55 years old, this can affect your life for a long, long time.
Well, and with that, all with Doge and all of this, reveal of all the government waste. Do you think it's intentional, Bill? Because the end result, I mean, like you said, you're cutting off the spigot here.
Right. Well, yeah, they have to know what the end result is. The other aspect to that is all sorts of truth is now coming out, and I mean, they just dumped the JFK files. Uh, what information did we get out of that? I mean, we got some. We didn't get any that I've seen yet. Any blockbuster news, but uh, let's see if they release Epstein's client list. I mean, there's just all kinds of truths. I mean, nobody really knew that all this money was going through USAID all over the world to all these woke different programs. So we knew there was waste. We knew there was graft, there was corruption, but I think very, very few people at all knew the scope of it. And I mean, here's a perfect example. Musk came out the other day with there's 14 quote magic money banks that basically just spew checks out. Well, the problem with that is those computers don't talk to each other. They don't talk to the Federal Reserve. So it should tell you that the money supply numbers that are out there, they're wrong. They have to be wrong. And they're wrong on the low side. So how much more money is out there? 5% more, 10% more, 50, 100% more? I mean, who knows? There's no way to know. So how do you do the math? How do you do the math on inflation, uh, GDP? I mean, you can't. You're missing a variable. That variable is false. So you can only estimate it, and the only way to estimate it is there's more money supply outstanding than they tell us, which means each dollar outstanding is worth less than was thought just a week ago because there's more of them out there.
This episode is brought to you by McIlvaney Financial Group. Their advisors bring a depth of knowledge and experience that allow them to serve their clientele with care, ensuring their financial needs are met now and in the future. Personally, I'm not saying cash is worthless, but you can see what's happening. It's worth less every year. Gold is the opposite. Click on the promo link in the show notes or go to www.mcilvaney.com/coffeeandamike. This is the question that I asked myself, and I'm going to ask you right now. Why now, right? I mean, USAID is been around for a long time. The fraud, the corruption, JFK. I mean, we'll see if the Epstein files ever come out. But why do this now?
Um, well, for one thing, I think the system is going to come down. I mean, whether these truths came out or not, the system's ready to blow up, and the powers that be, they know that. And I've said for years and years, they will need something, and that tells me that there's probably some sort of event, false flag or not, in our future that's going to crater the markets that they can point to. But I've said for years that they would have to kick the table over in order to point at something and say, well, our policies were working, but XYZ happened, and that's why we're having the problems we're having. That's why the system collapsed. So they can point at something and blame it rather than their policies. I think the timing of it, the timing of the truth coming out, obviously part of it is that, Trump got elected, the country got pissed off and certainly moved right. But I think the powers that be know that the system's going to come down one way or the other, and they've got to be able to point at something.
Well, and I heard your conversation with Danny. We were talking about the gold, and one thing I want to ask you about is because the repatriation of gold that's coming back into the United States. Do you think? I think
Yep.
it was Martin Armstrong I read where he was talking about Europe is getting rid of the gold. Europe is allowing this gold to leave because they are planning on going to war with Russia or escalating things with Russia.
There may be some truth to that. I mean, there may be some people, some institutions that want to get their gold out of Europe. I think it's much more likely that because there's been so much rehypothecation of gold and all other assets, but there's been so much leasing and rehypothecation of gold that what you're seeing is a lot of leases, a lot of gold loans have been called, and that gold is coming back to the States. It's coming back to the States. A lot of it's going to COMEX because they know a lot of these, a huge amount. It was a record amount in February. It'll probably be a bigger amount in April. You're talking about over 80 million ounces of silver in March that are going to be, those contracts will stand for delivery, and those are going to have to be delivered on. So if they didn't repatriate gold, if they didn't repatriate or onshore silver, the problem with that is then you have a failure to deliver, and that's an immediate meltdown.
How does the sovereign wealth fund play a part in all this? And the Mar-a-Lago card, and reorganizing or restructuring the financial system.
Yeah, as far as Mar-a-Lago, the sovereign wealth fund, let's see what actually happens with that. I mean, they're talking about revaluing gold and then using money from that revaluation to buy Bitcoin. If they do that, then you've got complete idiots running the bus, and it's game over. I mean, I don't know your opinion on Bitcoin, on cryptos. My opinion is it's a perfect accounting system for digital error. I think Bitcoin is nothing. All the cryptos are nothing, but they do have a perfect accounting system behind them. So revaluing the gold to buy Bitcoin, I mean, in my opinion, that's just pissing our gold reserves or the value of our gold reserves down the toilet.
Yeah, I mean the Bitcoin, the crypto. I know the meme coins are straight gambling based on some of the people I've had on here that explained it to
Right.
me. Bitcoin, things have to be explained to me like I'm 5 years old, Bill, because I still can't grasp it. I've had people on that swear by it, and maybe it's just way over my head that I just don't get it. But people, they swear that's the future.
Yeah, it is the future. It's the future with governments issuing central bank digital currencies. Do you really believe that governments all over the world are going to cede their power, their control to, I don't know. Hey,
Bill's dogs are going crazy for people that are listening.
yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Um, I don't see sovereign central banks, treasuries. I don't see them ceding control to uh, cryptocurrencies that are have no government backing. And I don't want to say they're private, uh, but they can't be controlled by governments. That's obviously the beauty of them, but it's also the reason that they'll be attacked. I mean, can you see Russia or China or the United States? Can you see any, any major countries allowing the money, quote, the money supply to be controlled by the marketplace? I don't think that's even within the realm of possibility.
But like a company like Tether or
Right.
yeah, privatized but using stable coins or whatnot.
Yeah, and actually, what is it? The one of the stable coins now is the seventh largest holder of treasuries.
What are your thoughts on that?
Hey, well, it could obviously become a problem. I mean, if you get mass selling, I mean, it's like you take, well, China and Japan are big. Just take any of the big holders of treasuries. What would happen if they turn around and just dumped and sold? Now, countries generally don't do that. You have back channels; they speak to each other, but you're not going to have that with with a stable coin that all of a sudden there's a mass dump. Who's going to be the buyer? And the answer to that, who's going to be the buyer, obviously, is the Federal Reserve. They will be the the buyer of last and at that point only resort.
Could you see a scenario where this administration would attempt to abolish the Federal Reserve in the next 3.5 years?
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, just look at Trump's first term. Look at this term. You've got Andrew Jackson's portrait hanging in the Oval Office. I mean, Andrew Jackson was a proponent of interest free money issued by the Treasury. I think that's where I hope that's where Trump is leading this, but we'll see.
Well, and the other thing is too. Do you think as we're moving into this new wherever this goes, is it going to be a multi-world system where China takes their part of the world, Russia takes their part, and the United States takes their part?
Yeah, very good possibility that the world breaks into, I don't know, five, six, seven different, if you want to call them areas. Uh, and it would not surprise me if that is the plan, because then why do you have, why is Trump wanting to make Canada the 51st state and take Greenland and take the Panama Canal? Uh, if the world is going to break into various sections, then you want a bigger section. You want control over larger land mass, larger natural resources, larger population. So, yeah, I definitely could see that as a possibility for sure.
Yeah, I just had Michael Yan on earlier this week, and he's down in Panama right now, and he was saying, referencing how the United States, their intention, from what he's seeing, is to take back the Panama Canal and take it back soon.
Well, yeah, I think that's obvious.
Well, so with that, and then coming back to the okay, let me back up a second. So where does Europe fall in all this?
Well, that would be a sector. That would be. I mean, if the world broke into, let's say, seven sections, you'd have Russia, Eastern Europe, you'd have China and South Asia. You've got Africa, you've got North America, and maybe parts of South America would join. But you're looking at basically the various land masses and the various cultures that kind of cling to each other.
To me, this sounds like our and this is what I've tried to explain to people. There are no more easy roads left here, but
No,
the best road sounds like this to me, Bill.
well, yeah, uh, it sounds okay to break into masses, but the important thing is the reason the system is failing as it is because there's no collateral left to borrow against. In other words, the buildup of debt we've reached debt saturation. So the past system is over. Uh, whatever new system we have, I just hope that the banksters that issue currency with interest attached to it. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that worldwide there are currencies that are issued by treasuries without interest attached to them. I mean, usury currency is a disaster. You're seeing the end game. You're seeing the end game to the 1913 Federal Reserve and the Bretton Woods. You're seeing the entire end game to all of that. And at this point, there's no collateral left that's unencumbered. And now that, of course, morphs into the great taking. The plan is to take the collateral, the underlying collateral, and basically everything defaults. But the owners of the collateral are the winners. And what they've done over the last, I don't know, 8-10 years is they've been putting laws all over the world into place where, whether it be your bank, your broker, your insurance company, those assets are no longer yours. They're on the balance sheet of the institution that you're doing business with for your benefit. But when the shit hits the fan and their solvency is in question, they're going to take the collateral. They're going to take everything in their name to settle up whatever they can in derivatives. And call them the consumer, the investor, whatever you want to call them, those people are going to be left with nothing. Those people are going to lose their assets legally, and there will be no recourse. So, I know I've spoken about it with you. I've spoken on, many different interviews. If you've not done it yet, spend 1 hour to watch The Great Taking or read The Great Taking. Should take you no more than an hour and a half to pretty much understand what these laws are and that they are factually they've been put into effect. This is not speculation. These laws are on the books. And I guess the question is, have you ever known a government to put laws on the books and then not use the laws? They're going to use these laws, and the public is going to be completely fleeced. So you need to get as few counterparties between you and your money. Otherwise, you're going to lose it.
Yeah, I've had David Webb on here before, and for people that have not watched it, I mean, the PDF is free online. The
Right.
video is free, and
There's no excuse. There's no excuse to not know about The Great Taking.
right.
It's free. It'll take an hour. If you don't learn about it, it's your fault, and whatever happens, oh well.
Well, and also with this, I mean, if this occurs both in Europe and the United States, I mean, there's going to be blood in the streets, Bill.
Oh, absolutely. There'll be blood on the streets, and there's going to be a lot of dead people from not having food. The system, what happens is the Great Taking, the stock market, the credit markets come down. Nothing is going to move if credit's not moving. If there's no credit, there's no activity. And I mean, how many people out of 100 do you think have food stocked up for a year, 2 years, 3 years? Very, very few. I mean, I'd be shocked if it even approached 5% of the population as far as being prepared for an event that lasts 3 months, 6 months, a year. People are going to die from not having food. People in the South are going to die from the heat. People in the North are going to die from the cold. We're no longer, this is not the Great Depression. The Great Depression, 85% of the U.S. population had the skills, the knowledge, and the ability to farm. Is that the case today? No, I'm going to say probably only 15% or less can actually farm, hunt, fish, and survive not being able to go to your local grocery store or corner store to get food, gas, whatever. So this is going to be it's going to be a disaster because the skills that the population once had have gone away. They've been forgotten.
Well, and I think too, people have this idea that they can, if they live in the cities, that they'll be able to go to the country or go to the mountains. And if things were to get to that level, you won't survive. They'll never let you up there. And all of the animals, like I grew up in Northeast Ohio, the deer will be gone within a week.
Right.
Like it'll literally be survival of the fittest.
Well, yeah, I mean, the wildlife will be gone. I don't know about a week, but a month or 2 months or whatever. But the point is, the skills, the renewable, like growing crops yourself. Those skills, they're gone. I mean, that's a fact. It's not opinion.
So many farms have been, destroyed by suburbia, right? By shopping centers and slab homes and
Well, and bought out. I mean, a lot of farms have been bought out. I mean, all this bird flu stuff and the slaughter of the chickens, the slaughter of the beef herd, the cattle herd. I mean, they're attacking our food supply is already being attacked, and if credit gets removed, I use the example of a loaf of bread almost all the time. A loaf of bread has got a dozen or more uses of credit from the farm to the grocery store. Any one of those uses of credit ceases or freezes or doesn't work, there's no loaf of bread. So I don't think people really understand that everything that you do, whether you turn lights on, start your car, eat a sandwich, whatever you do during the day, there's been credit or there is credit involved in the creation of it. So when credit ceases, life as we knew it will be gone forever. And yes, the system will reboot. Life will begin to get, at some point in time, life, just like any chart or stock or whatever, will bottom and it'll start to get better, but at a way, way, way lower standard of living than we're accustomed to. I think it's absolutely easy to say that no matter what happens, the standard of living is going to drop. And you can say that because we've lived beyond our means for so many years. And at some point in time, you got to pay the piper. And when the piper's paid, your standard of living gets slaughtered.
well, and you've talked about as well, the other thing that is money is gold and the value of having it right now.
Yeah, gold is money, silver is money. And the beauty of gold and silver is they cannot default. If you have them in hand and they don't get taken in the great taking, I mean, people who own gold, people who own silver, they're truly going to be wealthy. Uh, you go back 200 years ago. Anyone who had 1,000 ounces of gold, and remember, this was uh, this was back when there was a 15 to 1 or 16 to 1 pegged ratio between silver and gold. But if you had 1,000 ounces of gold or 10,000 ounces of silver, you were a wealthy person. And I'm going to say today, if you got 10,000 ounces of silver, what do you have? $330,000. That doesn't make you wealthy in today's world. But in a system breakdown, 10,000 ounces, you're looking at fabulous, unbelievable wealth because your wealth will increase in purchasing power while everything else falls away to zero.
Well, and as we sit here and we've talked about domestically now, one last thing I want to ask is, how does the future, and then I want to ask you about the Middle East and Russia, Ukraine, if we have time, but how does the future of the United States look through all this? I mean, I can't imagine all 50 states being able to stay together through this.
Well, yeah, that's obviously a possibility, a breakup. Uh, the American population has been sliced and diced. Look at an apple pie. Every time you cut it in half with a knife, you're splitting the population in half. And we're on, I don't know, 50, 100 uh, different different thoughts where people are on one side or the other. Whether it be liberal, conservative, whether it be uh, I mean, just all the different things that they've divided the population with. it's literally impossible to meet someone that falls into your slice of the pie on every single issue, because there's so many different issues. I mean, if you find that person, you're the odds of finding that person are extremely slim, because there's so many different issues that they've divided the country, half and half, or a third, two-thirds, whatever, but divisive issues. So it's it's really difficult to find someone with your exact view, and that's been the plan: divide and conquer. That's always been, if you want to call it, the military plan. You divide the population and you conquer it. So now you're talking about, states breaking off. Yeah, that's a very real possibility. I mean, do you think the state of New York or the state of California is going to line up eye to eye with the state of Texas or Florida? No. I mean, you're talking black and white there. So to see this country, break up, I don't know, into four different sectors or seven different sectors. I mean, I have no idea. It's a hypothetical, but I can definitely see this country, not being a United States before I'm gone.
Yeah, I don't know how you salvage it at this point. We're so divided. And like to what you just said, I mean, California, say California and Ohio, two different worlds, completely different worlds.
Well, California itself, you have the coastline, and then you have the vast majority of the land. I mean, the vast majority of land are held and owned by and large conservatives. The coastline is occupied by and large by liberals, and that's two distinctly different ideologies, 180 degrees in opposite directions. I mean, you could see the state of California split. You could see Oregon split. You could see Washington State split, where the land masses are so small, but the populations are huge in the cities. And then out and away from the cities, you have, in my opinion, right thinking people.
Well, yeah, I can't even, I'm still seeing people, on social media saying, I stand with Ukraine. And I'm just like, after 5 years of this, you can't see what's going on here. I mean, you want more money, you want more blood in Ukraine, more young people to die.
Right. I mean, from day one, I stand with Ukraine. If and I've tried to post every single one of Vladimir Putin's speeches, because if you read them or you listen to them, whatever, um, I defy anyone that in my opinion, thinks logically. I defy anyone to read any of his speeches and absolutely point to something and say, now, that is dead wrong. I mean, Putin, the way I see it, is Putin tried for years and years to make peace, was promised that NATO would not move 1 inch toward the Russian border. And just look at a map from 1998 to the year 20, what was it, 22 or 23, when they first invaded. The map, I mean, their border was completely surrounded. So, I mean, I fully understand, why the invasion started. And, the people that say, I stand with Ukraine, I don't see it. I don't see, I mean, my question is why? Why do you stand with Ukraine? Ukraine basically is propped up by Western governments that are run by imbeciles.
What is your concern? Russia, Ukraine, or what's going on in the Middle East right now? Or are they the same?
Uh, well, I guess theoretically they're similar. I think the Russia Ukraine situation is going to be resolved, because Ukraine has already lost from a practical standpoint. So I think that fire is going to get put out. What scares me is the Middle East. I mean, if you read the Bible, that's where the final war is fought over. Um, so problems in the Middle East, I think, are by far a bigger problem than Russia, Ukraine.
Because all signs point to Iran, and what's incredible, with Syria,
Right.
you're seeing the genocide in Syria with the Christians right now, and it's like,
Right.
okay, who put this guy in power?
Right.
Jelani. Well, his name's not even Jelani anymore.
Well, um, when you said, when you talked about Iran, I believe Iran is targeted. I think they're trying to find any type of reason at all that they can attack Iran. And I mean, that's obviously at the behest of Israel. And let me just say this. Um, I do believe that many of the things that Trump has done in the first, what are we, 60 days? We're not even, yeah, we're roughly 60 days out. I think many of the things that he's done are absolutely fabulous and needed to be done. One of the things that absolutely scares the crap out of me is him putting that executive order about anti Semitic speech. Well, how does a president write an executive order that trumps the very first Trump pun play on words trumps the First Amendment, trumps the Constitution? The Constitution guarantees you the right as an American to speak your mind freely. And now there's an executive order that basically says, if you say anything bad about Israel, you're going to jail. So I mean that scares me. Another thing that has come out in the executive order on the 500 billion into AI. That, oh, by the way, they're going to use AI to create individual vaccines based on your DNA. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Myself, I'm perfectly happy with the DNA that was given to me by God. I'll live with it till I die. I mean, that scares the crap out of me. That they want to give everyone a vaccine for their individual DNA. I mean, that's insanity.
Yeah, the anti-Semitism bill, and it's not getting as much coverage as it should
It's
because
getting no coverage.
yeah,
It's getting no coverage. That's the problem.
because we know how this game works, right? Once they creep in there, start with anti-Semitism, and then
Right.
the net just gets wider and wider and wider.
Right. Exactly.
The other thing too is Turkey. We're because there's some major protests that have been happening over the last couple of days in regards to Erdogan.
Right. Yeah, and if you've seen the lira, they were forced yesterday to raise interest rates to try to protect the value of the lira.
Do you think he's going to survive this, or will it be too much?
Ultimately, no. I think it will be too much. I think he will fall, but
It,
who knows? I mean, that's. I don't want to say it's minor, but that's not a uh, that's not a huge event in the overall scheme of things.
yeah, I know I'm running out of time here with you, but what is the future? Whose outlook is more dark, Europe or the United States right now?
Hmm. Uh, well, I got the answer to that one. It's got to be Europe. And I say it's got to be Europe because we still have the Second Amendment. And as Americans, having the Second Amendment, this country would have already been flushed down the toilet if it wasn't for the Second Amendment. I mean, look at Britain, look at Australia. They've taken the guns away. The population has absolutely zero force behind protests. But you better believe if something really stupid comes up in the United States and you get a mass protest of armed protesters, that's a real protest. So I'm gonna say Europe has a darker future because they have, I want to say, uh, more Marxist, for lack of a better word, more Marxist governments, and they don't have the ability to protect themselves.
Yeah, if you see what's going on right now in Ireland, I mean that
Oh yeah,
country.
and Britain, Ireland, Britain. I mean, come on, it's that's absurd. The whole country of Ireland is like that town. Where was it? It was before the election. They were talking about how bad the town had gotten with Somalians.
Oh, in Ohio, Springfield,
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
the
that
Haitians.
yeah, it's. I mean, they opened their borders and look what happened. And the population doesn't like that, but they don't have any guns. They don't have any way to physically uh, express their displeasure.
Well, and also, Canada too, right? How bad a shape is Canada in
Correct.
through all this?
That's correct. You still can. There are still guns in Canada, but largely they've been taken.
Defanged, and they don't have any gold. I had Maxime Bernier on, who's the head of the People's Party of Canada, and I didn't realize that they have no gold.
I think that the last I saw, the number that Canada had, and this was quite a few years ago, but it was after Britain sold for 60% of their gold. I believe Canada has 257 official ounces on the books. I could be wrong, but I think that's the number.
250.
That's absurd.
That's what do we have here?
8,300 tons supposedly.
And they have 257 ounces.
Right.
Where can people find you, Bill?
Just go to my website, billholter.com. There is a contact button. As you know, I do. My business is as a precious metals broker. If you want to contact me directly through my email, my business email, it's bholter@proton.me.
What do you suggest to somebody who says, all right, I got to buy some gold and silver? What type of percentage would you break down towards gold, silver, split it down the middle?
Yeah, because of the ratio, because silver is so cheap to gold, I suggest people be at least 70% silver and only 30% gold, with an eye at a later date to swapping some of that silver out and being at least 70% gold to silver. If you're just starting out, my advice would be do all silver, because silver is going to be used for barter when the system breaks down. You could barter with gold, but how are you going to get change? And that's why I'm such a proponent of junk silver, constitutional silver, the dimes and quarters. It takes $1.38, so call that 14 dimes, $1.40 to equal 1 ounce, which gives you 14 quote transactions versus a 1 ounce bar, silver round, sovereign, eagle, whatever. You want the smallest denomination because the smallest denomination will be the most sought after denomination. And it just happens that at this point in time, junk silver is about the cheapest way to buy silver also. So you're getting more weight for your dollar, and you're getting the best form.
Bill, as always, thanks for coming back on. Look forward to continuing to follow your work and more conversations ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mic drop.